So here I'm going to show you how I make off an end to an LED strip. You can get them little clamps, but I find that they don't always suit right, and if they move a little bit or go loose, they just stop working. So I punch through a little hole. This is with my voltmeter, to be honest, and it's an IP rated LED strip. So I just punch a little hole through the copper strip and then feed a twin cable through it. Well, not twin and earth or anything, just this is a twin flex. Feed it through them holes and then solder. Put a bit of solder on them just so they get a good connection. I've always find, you must admit sometimes, that if you solder a cable, it's a bit of a better connection and it will last longer. I've been to no end of undercovered lights where maybe the clips are broke or something like that, but if you solder it a little bit, then it's always going to be a better connection, and you're not going to get called back like maybe in a few months' time to say, yeah, these undercovered lights stopped working, or even plinth lights, or like the red, green, yellow lights as well, sort of in the colour changer lights. If they go wrong, they'll phone you up saying what's wrong with them, and it's normally the clips. So I put a bit of solder on them just to make sure that you get a fantastic connection, and I do it at home sort of thing in the garage where it's ready to take to site to put them in. It's just a little bit easier if you could do it on a workbench in the garage just to get it right. And then, yes, it is maybe a little bit over the top, but I'll swing them over as well. Swing them round to give them a little bit of solder on the other side. So basically it gets a good connection to that end of the LED tape, so then there's no way that it can come to bits. This is what I want to do, because it's a nightmare sometimes when you take it to site, you try and solder at site and they snap off. They're a nightmare. So this is what I do. I normally do it at home. Cut the lengths that I need to, these are for undercovered lights and plinth lighting basically, and so just solder them, just obviously a tiny bit of solder, keep it nice and hot, and then leave the solder on there a bit, because then the solder will go into the terminal and make sure you get a good connection, so it's not going to snap off or be a loose connection basically, because a loose connection on 24 volts, it just doesn't work. So you get a good connection on them solders. But then again, you don't want to just leave them like that. So firstly, snip these off as well, because there is some excess sometimes and you want it to be nice, neat and tidy as much as you can, because if there's a long connection on there and they touch, then yep, your 24 volts is not going to work. So I'll just chop them down a little bit, the excess on there, so I can try them and turn them on, and then give them a wiggle as well, because sometimes you do, yes, you get a loose connection. So I'll give them a little wiggle to make sure that they are a nice tight connection and they're not going to fail once I take them to site. But they look a bit pants at the end as well, because you don't want the end of the cable with the solder showing, because no doubt if you put them, I don't know, on something metal, they're going to bridge out and not work. So a bit of heat shrink won't be going, well, would be a good idea, sorry. So you put a bit of heat shrink over the end. This one I'm using the brown heat shrink. So you put a bit of heat shrink over the end of the LED tape, and you remember to do this before you put your plugs on the end as well, because otherwise you won't get them on over the heat shrink. And just stick the heat gun on, give them a blast, and it just looks a lot easier as well. Lot neater, sorry, not easier. It looks a lot tidier, doesn't it? Let's admit. When you've got a bit of heat shrink on the end, it just makes it easier to fit them later on, really, because you've got a bit of flex on the end rather than have to solder them on site. And there we go, all working, cut to length, ready to be installed on site.